Hello, everyone. Susan Gerbic from Psychics Explained. This world is getting strange. Okay, so I stumbled across an article, a blog written by a woman I've never heard of before. Her name is Kim La Capria, C-A-L-A, capital C-A-P-R-I-A. I will link to this in the show notes underneath this video that you're watching. So it's a guest post for a blog written by Brian Smith, and it was written in 2020, January 22nd, 2020. So this woman she calls herself a professional skeptic, a debunker, and she did work for Snopes for a period of time. And Snopes is that organization that takes and looks into the facts of things and looks into it in great detail. So she says in her article, and as I said, I'll read it to you. I mean, I won't read it to you, but I'll link to it. So she's gone from a materialistic atheist to an atheist who understands consciousness survives death, which is fascinating to me, how an atheist who doesn't believe in God or any gods believes that you can survive and become, there's afterlife. That's a fascinating kind of thing to wrap around. So if there are no gods, there's consciousness that we go into some sort of ether and there's something of the sort. It's interesting, but okay, so that's her belief. So this is written in 2020, and she does use the word grief vampires, which is a phrase coined by Mark Edwards. So obviously she's heard of some of the work we've done, I guess. Okay. So she considers herself a professional skeptic, a fact checker, and a debunker, and that she's been in the skeptic community since her late teens. And she looks like she's maybe 30 in the article that she's writing. So she has always believed that all mediums are brazenly fraudulent grief vampires. I don't even believe that. So I don't know why she always believed it, but okay. So she's always believed that all mediums are grief vampires. And I define a grief vampire as somebody who is trying to get a hook in someone. And it isn't only just for pay. You can be somebody who's trying to get a hook in somebody for reasons, power, or just they want to influence other people, or they feel like they know better than everybody else and they want to be able to influence mostly women how to lead their lives. And so I don't think of them all as grief vampires. Some of them, probably a good percentage of them, really think they're helping. It's usually those ones that are on, just generally the ones that you see on TV that tend to be the kind, well, yeah, it's hard to say. I guess they're not really, the people on TV like the Tyler Henry and so on, they're not really trying to get a hook in you because they don't expect you to come back. I mean, to some extent, they're trying to get you to buy into their gig. But anyway, so this woman is saying, Kim is saying that for more than half of her life, so if she was in her late teens or 20s, okay, she believed that, okay, she exercised discretion never to expose that belief to anyone grieving who had taken comfort in the idea consciousness survived death. That would have been cruel and unnecessary, and nothing I'd say would make their lives better. So I've had this article for a while, and I've been thinking about what to tell you guys about it, what my thoughts are on it. And my thoughts might change a little over time and the situation. So it's not so clear cut. So she says, I exercise discretion never to expose her belief that mediums are grief vampires to anybody who is grieving, who had taken comfort in the idea that consciousness survived death, that had been cruel and unnecessary, and nothing I'd say would make their lives better. So I'm interested in your guys' thoughts too. If you want to leave them in the comments underneath this video, that would be really interesting what you think. So I don't think it's a good idea to ever challenge anybody who's in grief, especially in the hardest parts of grief, the usually the beginning parts. And it changes. There are times when you think you're kind of out of it, and then you're back in it again for an hour or so. So I don't think that's a good idea to do that to anybody who believes in mediumship. If you've had a reading and you believe that you have contacted your dead loved one, then you have to walk on eggshells, because you want to be able to have better conversations with that person. You don't want to be the well, actually kind of person, and I know better than you. I mean, you're never going to have good conversations with the person, and you hopefully want to remain in good contact with them. This is somebody you possibly love or work with, or have a close relationship with, somebody you're going to see often, like a neighbor. I just, what she's written doesn't seem like reality to me, because I don't think most people would do that. I mean, if somebody's grieving and they go to see a medium and they feel like they got some kind of comfort out of it, I'm not going to go, ha ha, no, I don't think so. I don't think anybody really would. Well, very few people would. So I think the best way to educate people about mediums and cons of all kinds of things, romance scams, and people call you up on the phone and pretend they're in jail, their grandson's in jail and they need to send them money and all that kind of stuff. I think the best way of educating people about that is to give them, to talk to them about it beforehand, before they get into that situation, and give them some sort of skills, or help them. You guys work it through together, not necessarily here's your skill, but you could say, I got one of those calls the other day, and I started thinking about it. How would I actually know if somebody was real as opposed to somebody who's fake? How would I know if the person calling me up on the phone, or the date I want to go on a date? And how do I really see that the person is a real person? They keep making excuses why they can't meet up with me, or they need money. What are the warning signs? And I think that if you have those kind of conversations with people, that's the best place to be in, before the event, not after, when they're already in grief. You can't tell a person who's already at a point where they're believing this, whatever it is, that they're wrong. I mean, you see these people are catfished. And if you don't know what catfishing is, that's where it's usually romance. And there's a whole channel on YouTube channel. Be careful when you go to the YouTube channel. If you watch one of their videos and it's just a stream of them. I think they got like 1,000 videos out there, and it'll really hook you. People who believe they're talking to somebody, usually over the internet, like a chat function, and they think it's somebody that really loves them and wants to have a relationship with them, and it turns out they're really not even who they say they are. They're not that person. Anyway, so I don't think it's a great idea. Let's say your dad, you think, is involved in the catfishing. He's giving money to somebody he thinks is he's in his 70s, and he's got this 20-year-old hottie, absolutely gorgeous, very sexy photos, is sending it to him, and wants money, and she's going to come from some country, some far away, as soon as she gets her green card, visa, whatever, and she's coming over, and she's going to have a relationship, and they're going to marry and all this other stuff. Okay, so the wrong time to have a conversation with your dad about that is when he's really into it and he's giving out, thousands of dollars. That's the wrong time to do that. The best time to have that kind of conversation with your dad is way before, and you talk about security on how do you know who you're talking to, and giving money to people, or that is lonely, right? Okay. So going back to this article, when it came to entertainment, I had no qualms about rattling off the laundry list of ways we skeptics and debunkers were certain that mediums were knowingly faking it. Well, We can't all be knowledgeable about everything. I mean, if I'm talking to somebody about the flat earth or hollow earth or conspiracy theories, I don't know all of the science behind it or the reasons why behind it or anything like that. I would have to rattle off a few things that I've heard from the skeptic community and maybe go do a quick read on it or watch something or ask a friend who knows more about it than I do. So yeah, I wouldn't know. I would rattle off stuff too, and I would assume everybody else would, because we don't know everything, right? Okay, so this woman says that most of her life she's lived her life on Long Island. And Long Island is awash in not only mediums, but well-known mediums. In addition to John Edward, Teresa Caputo, and George Anderson. I've never heard of George Anderson, but all right. Okay, instead of growing up taking these demonstrations seriously, I marveled at Long Island's attachment to superstition. Okay, so she feels that she lives in an area that's very superstitious. Welcome to everywhere. Okay. The first time I reconsidered John Edward was during a regular phone call with the medium who changed my mind, Carolyn Clapper, Carolyn Clapper. Never heard of her. We discussed the seemingly high concentration of mediums on Long Island, and she opined she believed Edward was legitimate. Okay, so first off, you're speaking to a medium who's telling you that this other medium is legitimate. You don't see anything wrong with that at all. So, all right. So you got this medium on the phone who says, obviously I'm real, and John Edward is obviously real. So, okay. I guess I got to look up Carolyn Clapper. What has she done? Is she solved crimes? Is she found missing people? You know, has she warned us of COVID? Did she warn us about the wildfires? Is she even alive? I don't know. Never heard of her. So it didn't make much of an impression on me. This is what the woman is saying, Kim is saying. Months later, I was researching. Oh gosh, I can't remember how to say this word. It's that drug that people take in, like you go places like the Philippines or South America, and you take this drug, ayahuasca. Yeah, I said it right. Ayahuasca. I've heard it, but I don't think I've seen it spelled before. And she started watching YouTube videos. And you know what happens when you start watching YouTube videos? If you're watching Catfish, you know what I mean. They know these are hour-long shows, so they want to show you the next one. They show you the next one, and you keep getting suggestions, and you keep getting suggestions. Okay. On one such video on the channel of the user Shaman Oaks, that sounds legit, right? Shaman Oaks. And she was watching a video for Shaman Oaks. I guess who was talking about. I can't say that word again. You know what it is the word is spelled ayahuasca. Okay. The way it's spelled, I want to say it like it's spelled Ayahuasca. So I want to say it, but it's not ayahuasca. Okay, I guess that's how you spell it. Anyway, so she gets a video called Proof Psychic John Edward Isn't Cold Reading. Okay, so John Oliver came out with this video on his show, and I know very well exactly what video she's referring to. She refers to this. And John Oliver makes fun of psychic mediums. And I know of this video because my New York Times article came out with the two different stings I did, Operation Peach Pit and Operation Pizza Roll, where we exposed Thomas John and Matt Frazier. So almost immediately afterwards, John Oliver came out with this video. I think they were within days of each other, and people were like, how did you do that, Susan? You got John Oliver to do this special at the same time. I'm like, no, I had nothing to do with the John Oliver thing. It's just coincidence, right? So John Oliver though I love him, and of course he's British, so I can hear him speak about anything. I he did an okay job with that video. Of course he's a comedian and he's trying to get views. We should probably look at it together. I'll make a note of that to possibly do the John Edward video someday. I mean, he has a point, but he's missing the nuance of it, and he makes fun of people in it. And I, maybe to my friends and stuff, I'm going to make fun of people, off camera about how people look or sound or whatever. But on camera, I don't think it's a great idea because we don't know. It's not kind. It's not their fault that they look like that. It's not my fault I look like this. Well, sort of it is. But you see what I'm saying is, if a person is a medium and they can communicate with the dead, their speech pattern or their appearance isn't tied to that. It's just, if people out there could have this paranormal power, who's to say that it's got to go to a certain kind of person who has a certain kind of eloquence and a certain kind of look? So I just think making fun of people for their appearance isn't a good idea. I'd rather let's critique what they're actually saying and doing. So this woman, Kim, is kind of turned off by this video by John Oliver, who's making fun of psychic mediums and just kind of like hand waving, though he does make good points. Okay. So John Oliver had used excerpts from John Edwards' readings and implied they were fraudulent, something I'd always believed. But the video that she's mentioning that I'm going to show you clips from is worth watching. It does a good, concise job of explaining a lot about what he's going to say. Okay, so I've watched this video a few times and I'm going to show you. So it says, when a skeptic is using video clips to debunk a medium, they've already said that mediums use deceptive editing to give the impression they score more hits than they actually do. That may be a clever bit of projection because those example clips are also clipped in a way to show the medium failing. So editing is used to prove your mediumship, and editing is used by skeptics to prove that the medium is fake. And I don't know where to go with this because we don't have an infinite amount of time. So we have to show clips to make our point. And a lot of the videos if on my channel are from beginning to end and nothing's clipped out of the readings I give. Even the most boring points of the video, of the reading, I'll include because I think it's important for us to understand what is going on in the reading, how much of it is downtime or laughter and joking, or like a priming incantation, a prayer, that kind of thing. I think it's interesting to show that, even though it probably loses me views all the time when people watch my channel. But I'm here to document this and to learn, and I'm hoping you're here to learn also. So we need to not always go for the clips. But John Oliver isn't going to be able to show all of John Edwards' videos to prove. I mean, he's making a point. He's got a tight show. It's on Showtime, and it's from this point to this point, and he's got to be done with it. It's not to show his evidence, like real evidence. So, not all mediums use deceptive editing, just the ones on TV that are recorded. Oh, which is those. Okay. No third party watching who is unacquainted with the person being read is any more qualified to rate its accuracy than any other. That's not true. Absolutely not true. If you have a psychic medium who's starting off with, the most common names in the alphabet, in the language they're in, and it's geared to like the age of the person who's being read, are you getting names that would it be appropriate, the most popular names for the generation that would be the father of the person who's being read, or of a child? I mean, you can call that out, even if it is a hit. You can say, that was a hit. But it's also one of the most common names in that era. So we can't rely just on what a person says. If a person comes in and says, I'm going to do a reading with John Edward, and I'm writing down the people I would expect to hear from, and these are the names and the relationships to me, and they gave that paper to, another person, and then after the reading you see if they come through, or if he gets some random neighbor across the street or somebody you once worked with, then that's the large number kind of thing. So yeah, I think we could call people out on vagueness, because when you're watching these, and I might show you this clip where she's talking about, it's so vague, and so many interpretations are in it, and then you're watching the body language of the person who's getting the reading, and they're leaning into it going, yeah, oh yeah, and it's not evidence, even though I feel like I'm having a personal moment with John Edward and he's reaching my dead person. I get it, because a reading is very personal, and when you're motivated, it's a feeling of euphoria that you're seeing and hearing from your dead loved one, somebody who's died, and they love you and they're watching over you. It's very hard to remove yourself from that moment. Okay. So she also says, from here, I want to discuss the myths I previously believed, and you can watch hundreds of clips of mediums like John Edward and make up your own mind about these things. My own statements are based on experiences I've had, which again, the first time was as a practice debunker, and then she's saying she's wrong. So these are experiences. All right. So myth number 1, mediums get their hooks in by saying the deceased has a J name or M name, the two most common initials. All right. It is definitely true mediums like Edward reference initials, sometimes common ones like J or M, but just as commonly, they ask about a complete first name, Rita, Bob, Bill, or Anthony. So she's saying that it's not okay to do that. They don't only do initials. John Edwards does a lot of initials. And the names she just rattled off, Rita, Bob, Bill, Anthony. Well, these Bob, Bill, and Anthony, so Robert, William, and Anthony, some of the most common middle names there are. What about last names, John Edward? Why can't you get last names? So she's saying that they commonly give out first names too. Myth number 2. Mediums employ hot reading, obtaining most of their detailed information through Google searches. So no, most mediums do not hot read. I've said that for a long time now. Most mediums cold read. Hot reading exists when somebody is looking somebody up with pre-knowledge. That is the common belief out there. If you were to ask somebody how psychics work, if you believe that psychics aren't really working, they're going to say they look you up. Most don't do that unless you're going to a medium regularly, like you see a medium and then 6 months later or a month later you go back to the same medium. Well, it's because they remember you, and your story is reminded to them, or they took notes after you left, like they used to in the book Psychic Mafia, that talks about what was going on in the psychic industry in the 1940s and 50s, where they kept notes, actual notes, and they would share the notes with other people who were visiting from out of town, or if the psychic went to another area, they would write to each other. What do you know about this person? So most do not hot read. Very, very unlikely most people do that. So this person, Kim, is saying that mediums employ hot reading. No. Myth number 3. Mediums leverage people's grief, providing only vague details which they could apply to almost anyone. Yeah. Grief-addled victims are more than happy to make these vague hits fit their deceased loved one. Yes. Okay. All right. So then she's using in the next paragraph, she's saying, well, what is it? Are they looking people up on the internet using Google to find out facts, or are they just giving vague hits? So she's still thinking that we think everybody's hot reading. No, most people do vague hits. And when you're grief ridden, of course, not even grief ridden. If you are a believer in mediums, you're going to believe that the medium that you're talking to is probably real. And so let me see how I can make this fit. So here she's talking about the videos she's seen. I don't know how many that is. It looks like it's not vague, and that there are long forgotten childhood memories, highly specific things, details about insides of homes, names, family secrets. No, they say these things, and the sitter makes a connection to it, but it is not. It is vague because when you're watching it, the sitter's giving most of the information. The medium's just giving these little clips here and there and saying, something about a piano. I don't know why I'm seeing a piano. And the person says, yes, my grandmother had a piano. I used to go play on it all the time. And, sometimes she would sit with me and we would, I tried to take piano. They're giving all the information. So it feels specific, but it's not. It's a vague statement that the medium throws out there because as a society, a lot of homes, especially not recently, but almost all of us grew up with access to a piano, your family, your church, your school, something. So when you talk about a piano, and of course, any child is going to be curious about the piano, want to go play with it. So, right. So here it says, of note is, who crashed a black car last month? Oh, that sounds specific. I've never heard a video where they said that. Or you found a ticket in your dad's pocket the night of his funeral. I've never heard anything like that either. And if so, I would think it was a plant in the audience. I wouldn't be automatically believing it. But she's written that in this blog without any link to anything. Okay, myth number 4. Mediums carefully extract information from the people they're reading. Yeah. Allowing those people to fill in answers and then repeating them back. Yeah, it's a common way they say it. They'll say, I'm getting a Robert. Oh, that's my brother. Yes, he's telling me he's your brother. I'm seeing a cat. It's a cat. And it's very odd because this cat has its nose. Yeah, I did. I had a cat and it had this spot. It was like a splotch on his nose. Yeah, because that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm being told. Oh, wow. How did he know I had a cat with this thing on its nose? He didn't say that. He said, I'm talking about a cat that has this thing on its nose. And you brought it up to be your specific cat and described it. Okay, going back to what she says. The person being read, who often possesses a recording of the event, forgets having provided the information, and the medium dupes people into believing they discovered information which was actually provided by the person being read. Yes. And they don't have a recording of the event. They often do not have a recording of the event. Almost nobody has a recording of the event. And if they did have a recording of the event, when they're asked for a testimonial or whatever, it's usually right after the reading when they're emotional and they think they remember everything, not after the person has listened to the reading several times and analyzed it and thought about it. That's not usually how it works. So the person being read forgets, as if that's a bad thing. You're not forgetting, it's word trickery, right? So yeah, of course, if you've got somebody rambling a whole list of stuff at you, it's not really forgetting, it's being, plowed over by a steamroller with information coming in so fast. Even if you had a audio of it, it's not always likely that somebody, unless you're trained in this and you've gotten a lot of skill or you've listened to this, all my videos, you don't have the expertise to see the wordplay because there's a lot of wordplay done in these. For example, one of the videos I have for Matt Frazier, and it's just the audio because I was in the audience and I recorded it. He says, he's talking about dogs. And then he's talking to a woman about her father who's died. And he's talking about dogs. And then he switches very quickly to German Shepherd. And when she responds, it sounds like she's agreeing to the German Shepherd when all she really was doing is agreeing to dogs. And it was just done so quickly with his, because of course he's skilled at this. You know, he says, and I'm getting something about a dog in heaven with him and a German Shepherd. And she's like, oh, yes. So she's not necessarily reacting to the German Shepherd part. She's reacting to the dogs. And people don't notice that because our brains just go to the conclusion to move on with the conversation. You're just following along with the conversation. And later she can say something more specific. Oh my gosh, he knew my dad's dog's name was Rachel, and that she used to shake hands. I don't know. And what actually happens is something sort of similar. Maybe he got he said the name Rachel somewhere, and you said, oh, that's my dad's dog. Oh, yeah, that's what he's telling me. Yeah, that's right. Now it makes sense. And something about tricks. Yeah, she could shake hands. Oh, yeah. So later it's remembered as he knew my dad's dog's name was Rachel and that she shakes hands. So it is misremembering. The medium dupes people into believing they discovered information was actually provided by the person being read. Well, I don't know if I'd say dupes. It's wordplay, and it's happening very fast at a very emotional time. Okay. So she says, oh, well, these are, we can't say that because these are mediums on live television and there's unedited recordings and mediums are done in front of a gallery and the medium didn't say, yeah, it's done. It's done. Watch all the videos I have on my channel. All right. Here's the thing. She says, and this is what the shaman says, is that if a person is giving a reading, so the medium's giving a reading and they tell them, wait, don't say anything to the sitter. Don't give me any feedback. She's saying that's a sign of evidence that the medium is real. No, it has nothing to do with it. It's the medium is on a path to go through their schlick with a person, and they're just on a trajectory. They're very skilled. These people have done thousands and thousands of readings, right? So they know what path they're going to go on, and they're steering you somewhere. They're reading you. So if they tell you, wait, that's I want you to be quiet for a moment because I'm hearing from your dead person no, it's not what you're saying. It's this other thing. And I need you to figure out how it's going to make sense. It's not, no. So just because, or they hot read them and they're trying to say, I don't want to go to that. I want you to go to this because this is the thing I prepared. Myth number 5, if mediums were authentic, they wouldn't play charades. They'd just say people's names and details and not engage in the sort of guessing game. Yeah. Yes. They say they give details, but they never give last names, unless, of course, they've hot read them, which I have a video for you, but I can't release it until after Operation Banana Cream Pie is over, where she uses the last name. But I can't release that right now. The video is created, is just sitting there unlisted on my channel. All right. In case I die, somebody has to let my kids know to release those. All right. All right. So she says, I strongly believe this to be ironclad proof mediums were fake. Of course, there was no afterlife, but if there was, ghosts or whatever would just come out and say stuff. They didn't need to play hot or cold. I mean, they say they're specific. They get the name, John or Mary or Richard or William or whatever. Why can't they say the last name? Why can't they say a phone number? Why can't they say the last four digits of the person's social security number or something a little more specific than that? And then she's going on in this article, like I said, I'll let you look at it, about how and this is what the shaman's video says, is that how mediums work is, do you see the problem with that sentence right there? You're assuming mediums work. Here's how it works. No, it does not work. There's never been any medium that has worked. There's been no testing. No, this doesn't make sense how mediums work. This is how it works. Like I know better than everybody else. No, that's not how mediums work. What he says in his video is, well, like here's I don't know what apple pie is. Let's say the dead person doesn't know what apple pie is. So they will show you a pastry. They'll show the medium a pastry, and then they'll show them some fruit. And you're supposed to put that together. And the medium says, I'm seeing pastries and fruit. And you say, apple pie. My mom always made apple pie. That's how it works in the medium world. Except for all the other times when they give specifics, like, well, John is here and he's telling me about this time, whatever. It's no. All right. I think I'm almost at the last part of this. Yeah. Myth number 6, mediums skillfully turn anything into a hit to create the illusion of accuracy when they're not reeling the victim in hard enough. She says that's flat out false, specifically with John Edward. I experienced this. So she's saying that this medium, somebody's agreeing to something, and the psychic will say, no, that's not what I was thinking. I think it's something else. And she's saying that's evidence, kind of what I referred to earlier. No, we don't know what they're doing. And this clip of John Edward giving this reading to somebody, he's going off onto something else. And the person's kind of agreeing, or like, oh, I think it's this. And John Edward's like, no, that's not it. It's something else. John Edward's kind of playing it for laughs and because he has to fill a show. And he's got somebody in the audience, a real colorful, interesting kind of guy, and his wife. They're kind of joking with each other. And there's such a big hit in the audience that in the next segment, they bring him up on stage. And John Edward goes through him again. And it's just, more laughter. And everybody's like, oh, that's so funny. Because the guy in the audience who's getting the reading is truly funny. Some guy. I don't think he's a plant because there's nothing specific, though it seems specific as a viewer. But when you really listen to it, it's not. Anyway, so I wrote to this woman, Kim, on X, and asked her if, that she wrote this in 2020 and if she still stands by it. And I've not heard anything from her. I will maybe do another video if so. So this has kind of gone long enough already. So I should show you, I said I'd show you some of this video. And let's see a little bit, and then I will link to it in the description.
Hey guys, so today I want to talk about cold reading. A lot of people accuse psychic mediums of being cold readers, and it's just not the case. Like, I'm sure it's the case with some mediums, because there's phonies and bad actors in every profession, but the legit real psychic mediums don't use cold reading at all.
Okay, so he's acknowledging that some people are frauds. How do we tell the difference? How do they tell the difference? If this is your community and you know that there are frauds out there that are making the whole industry as a whole look really bad, then I think that it's partly your responsibility to weed out those people, either set up some sort of testing that's vigorous, scientifically controlled, and has some sort of real serious protocol behind it, involve scientists. Well, don't invite scientists, involve skeptics who do this kind of thing, put them through testing agencies and so on. That's better.
In There's phonies and bad actors in every profession, but the legit, real psychic mediums don't use cold reading at all. All I ask is that you have an open mind. A lot of people think they have an open mind and they really don't. They already have an agenda. They already go, I want to prove that it's real. I want to prove that it's fake. And if you go in with that mentality, you're always going to end up with what you want to find. Just step back and say, you know what? I'm just going to hold off judgment, watch this, watch the evidence, and then see what I think in the end. Save your judgment till the end. This is all going to be about like,
Hey, no. Nobody, how are you supposed to approach this very complicated world of mediumship with an open mind and not being able to draw on other people's research and years of work explaining it? It would be, this is not everybody's forte. So if you just sat somebody down in front of a TV and said, watch this reading, and you know nothing about mediumship or psychics or anything of that kind, you're drawing on your life experiences to understand what's going on. So maybe you have enough understanding of how editing works on TV shows, or you feel like the person is very genuine because you feel like you have a connection to the person or whatever. You're not getting into where the facts are and how this actually works. It's like watching a magician, not knowing it's a real magician. Like, so you're at the Magic Castle or you're watching a magic show, but you meet somebody on the street and they're doing this amazing thing, and you have no guide to knowing, is that a magician who's fooling me, or is this somebody who's got special powers and I just don't, you have no context behind it. So if you don't have foreknowledge of what is actually happening with, where they pull the coin out from behind your ear. I mean, if you just saw that and didn't know anything about magic, you might think somebody really materialized a coin from behind your ear when it's a clever magic trick, and it's very skillful to be able to do that. I can't do it, but I know what it is. So no, you can't have an open mind completely. And this is just a way of saying, we'll poo-poo all those skeptics because we've already made up our minds. Well, yeah, there's laws of nature. I mean, the earth is not flat. I don't need to have an open mind that the earth might be flat or might be hollow, or have an open mind that vaccines are bad. I can't. I mean, there's certain facts that we have as a knowledge base between us as human beings on this planet. And when somebody's saying that they're violating the rules of physics, and we're playing pretend with what's going on out there, yeah, we're going to call them on it. You can't just have it. Well, you don't have an open mind. That's just a way of saying, okay, well, your mind isn't open. So you have to have an open mind to believe this. You have to be okay with believing it in order to believe it. Well, then that's silly. Of course not. Okay, let's see.
A John Edward clip that I'm going to show from his show Crossing Over. I'm not sure if you're aware of that show, but it used to be on around, I think, 2001 to 2004. It was on national television. So in this clip we're about to watch, he keeps telling them no. He tells them no over and over again, saying, that's not what I'm getting. It's not what I'm getting. And he even causes them to be frustrated. But that's what I love about John Edward the most, is that if he hears something or sees something in his mind and he knows that he's right, or if it's not feeling right to him, he says no. He sticks with the evidence no matter what.
Okay, I'm not going to show you the clip, I've decided, because this video is already too long, and I'm going to put the link in here as well. In the clip, though, I can tell you, as I said, John Edward is talking to a gallery reading. He's got this guy singled out. The guy is funny as heck. And John Edward just keeps going on at him. And the guy's like, no, I don't know. And John Edwards, you can see John Edward is probably bored to pieces about doing mediumship. I can't even imagine what it must be like to have done, 100,000 readings or whatever it is. He's done 10,000 readings. And he's just having a, whatever. He's like, let's go on to this thing. And no, I know this is right. You've got to figure this out. This is something that happened in your life. Let's call your mom. Call your mom up, kind of thing. And they call the mom up, they put him on stage. And then finally they figure it out. And then they go to his home or somebody's house. The video follows up with him going to somebody's house. Now, what is it all about? And then they're talking to him at the house in the kitchen with his sister there. And she's like, well, yeah, well, that's whatever. We all knew that. It was a show, right? So I don't know if the guy was planted in the audience or they just got lucky and found somebody really funny. But it isn't evidence because John Edward is on a trajectory to either get laughs or to just whatever, just because he doesn't agree to it just because the guy said to it. It's not John Edward's job is not to get from place A to place B and be done. It's to make it entertaining, to get laughs, to keep people, well, in these recorded gallery readings that are tightly edited, by the way. And it's tightly edited because they go to the guy's house. So Ulysses living there and they walked over, So anyway, I'm going to show you this last bit and then I think I'm going to end this video. So it's just so silly, you guys. This is about James Randi, who was a friend of mine. And he gave me the money that I am able to do psychic stings with and to keep things running. He was an amazing human being, very kind. He cared very much about people. And I miss him all the time. But this is a better world because he knew James Randi. So James Randi had $1 million challenge. It grew over time. It started out with just a small amount of money. And it was, if anybody could claim that if anybody could prove under tight controls that they had abilities, any kind of abilities, not psychic abilities, anything, any kind of thing. They could move objects with their mind. They could predict the future. They could remote view. They could, understand what chickens were saying, or I don't know, anything. Perpetual motion machines, medicine things, anything that they would give him $1 million. But there was tight protocols. And I know this because I've been involved in this world for a long time. And James Randi's not the only one that has had $1 million challenge. Well, had a huge challenge. There's others as well. So John Edward and no TV psychic has actually agreed to take any of the challenges because they know they're not real. And the publicity would be enormous for them doing a challenge of any kind. So they're going to always wiggle out of it. They're making large sums of money being who they are, and they don't need to prove it. So I've heard this excuse many times from the paranormal community that Randi's challenge and other challenges out there are not legit because the protocols are too tight, or they're not agreed to. They're telling the person to do something they don't have the ability to do, and or other reasons like this one I'm going to show you right now.
I looked into that last night, and he actually stopped the challenge in 2015. And there's a quote of him saying that there was no way he was ever going to give up the money because he was right. So that is a great example of someone who already has their mind closed. That's a reason why a lot of professional mediums wouldn't go to him, because there's no way they were going to change his mind. He didn't want to have his mind changed. There's plenty of evidence that this stuff is real if you have an open mind. If you refuse to see it, you refuse to see it. He stopped doing it, and he admitted he would never give up the actual money. So.
Go with this. Mediums do not go to get tested by James Randi or any of the other organizations because they know they are not legit. They do not want to go under tight protocols. I helped plan these protocols when I worked with the Independent Investigations Group in Los Angeles. I helped handle this. And people, the only people who apply for these paranormal challenges are people who have an inability to even say what their claim is. They send us rambling letters, emails, sometimes letters in the mail that are just not healthy conversations. They're not coherent. I mean, it is people who are definitely not well. I don't know if it's temporary or if it's a permanent state, but these people are making claims with, I mean, it could have 15 or 20 different things that they sort of do. And the whole idea is with the challenge is, what can you do specifically that can be tested under controlled circumstances? And what are the criteria you need to make this happen? And under what percentage, how would we know, how accurate could you possibly be? And have you tested yourself? They almost never test themselves. They go to a lot of trouble to go through the protocol process, wasting sometimes years of correspondence back and forth with people to come up with something that's testable. What can you do? Under what circumstances? What is it? What is it can you do? And it has to be testable. Well, I talk to dead people. Well, that's not good enough. That's too vague. How do you test? I talk to dead people. Let's go down to even closer. We would give them examples. We'd say, all right, can you tell from a photograph if a person is living or dead, for example? And if they said, yes, I can tell if a person's living or dead, fantastic. We will give you 10 photographs. One person in there is dead. And then we'll give you another 10 photographs. One person's dead. And then we'll give you another 10 photographs. One person's dead. And we'll go through a trial process, and it's really tightly controlled. And see, in using statistics, it says that if they got all three, then the odds would be astronomical. Or one person said that they could tell if the book, like a diary, was written by a male or a female, or living or dead, by holding the book. So that's testable, right? So you get X amount of journals or diaries, and then you test it like that. Now, you would have to tightly control it for like fraud, because a diary might have writing on the outside, or might have an appearance, like if it's looks a certain way, it might look more like a male's or a female's. So you would say, if we take this diary and we put it in a bag and we turn the flap over and maybe put some tape on the back of it, will that change your ability to be able to tell if the diary is from a male person or a female person? And if they say, no, it shouldn't have any problem at all. I can, even with as long as it's a paper bag, we should have no problem doing that. And then you would say, okay, so that's much tighter. All right. So then they would go on testing day. They would say, here's a diary in a bag. It's written by a female. Does this work? And then the person holds it and they say, yes, it is a female. I got it. And then you say, okay, so you feel good about proceeding with your test. Yes, I feel very, very good about this. Okay, is there anything else you need? Do you need water? Do you need fruit? What, warmer conditions, more comfortable chair? What is it that we can make it so this ability that you say you have is much more refined, so that you can do this? And it's all agreed to way in advance, and it's signed off on. They have a contract, like, under this amount of hits, before you can move on to the next protocol, which is going to be a tighter protocol. So if you can pass the preliminary, three sets of 10, you get 1 out of 10, then you'll move on to the next. But nobody's ever done that. And they've done a bunch of tests. Like I said, I did this for years. So for Randy to say, I'm right, and that means he's closed-minded, right? So it doesn't mean you can't try. He doesn't want to have his mind change. He doesn't want to have his mind change. I'm not one of those skeptics that believes that we should give the benefit of the doubt and say, oh, mediumship could be real. You just haven't convinced me. No, I know it is not real. It is impossible to communicate with the dead. That is my stance. I am not having an open mind that you can convince me. You cannot, if your limb is cut off, it is not going to automatically regrow in seconds. What? Like some kind of superhero from a cartoon show. That is not going to happen. That defies the laws of physics. I'm not going to believe that it can go away. I don't believe that you can convince yourself to rid your cancer from your body by believing it'll go away. Sometimes it goes away. Sometimes it's false. Sometimes the medication that you're taking actually works, and sometimes it doesn't help. Sometimes your life is prolonged, but belief isn't going to do that. Belief might help you get through cancer treatment and might make your life might make the treatment or the rest of your life feel better and feel more, just feel like a better experience having belief. But belief isn't going to cure anything. Anyway, there's lots of testing agencies out there. The Australians have a challenge. The CFIIG, which is the one I used to work with, but now is affiliated with Center for Inquiry. I think it's got $500,000. There's lots of organizations all around the world that offer challenges. Dustin Dean has a challenge. Kenny Biddle, I believe, does some sort of challenge. He has a piece of paper with something written on it, like a sentence, and it's sealed in an envelope, and he challenges people with that, what's in the envelope, and nobody's gotten close. So yeah, no, Randy's right. He knows it. He's right. I know I'm right. I'm sorry if I don't hold to the standard of skeptical, whatever, the skeptics out there who believe that we always have to have an open mind, that evidence, if the right evidence comes through, then we'll change our mind. I mean, I don't have time to waste on that kind of stuff. The earth is not flat, right? We did go to the moon. Vaccines do help, if not eradicate disease or illnesses, eradicate things. And you cannot communicate with dead people any more than you can communicate with dead plants or dead animals. It's just not possible. And it's not that you're going to convince me. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't, how could that be? So anyway, I'm gonna link in the description underneath this the article that I read off of for Kim, and if she gets back to me, I'll get back to you guys, and the video that shows the segment on John Oliver. I mean, not John Oliver. John Edward. Sorry, y'all. So I hope you enjoy my unscripted thoughts. So I do get a little rambly. Sorry about that in advance. But please leave me your comments. I hope this is thought-provoking to you guys. I mean, what would it take for you to believe in something? I don't know. We probably all have different standards, right? So even if I think my parents appeared in front of me and I was getting communication with them, like I was able to talk, I would probably just think I'm hallucinating. Or yeah, I doubt I would think that they were actually there. Maybe I would believe it, but it doesn't make it real.